Many parents, particularly moms, feel like taking care of your health and well-being only comes after your family's needs are met, which essentially means there's no time left for any form of self-care. Well, my guest today is Leslie Forde, and today we're going to discuss how we can take better care of ourselves and in doing so, take better care of the ones we love. Leslie is the CEO and founder of Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. Her business provides evidence-based tools for moms to reclaim the time from the never-done to-do list for well-being. Over 3,500 parents have participated since March of 2020 in the Mom's Hierarchy of Needs research study. This is the longest-running study of its kind about the pandemic's ongoing impact to work-life care and wellness needs for parents. Thank you so much for joining this conversation with Leslie Forde.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. It's so great to have you here. And I just, since we spoke the first time, I knew that I wanted to have more conversations with you because you talk about the things that many women, many mothers discuss, some often in private, often with their therapists, with their close friends, family members. And I just don't think it is discussed enough. So I am so thrilled to have you here. And, you, like many women I know, have felt in your life overwhelmed and burnt out trying to balance work, home life, parenting, and meeting your personal needs. And at some point you realized there was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with which I studied in school and many people studied in school and know about. And then there is Mom's hierarchy of needs. I would love for you to tell us how you got there.
Absolutely. Well, it was after I burned out and it was like I went down in flames after I returned to work from my second maternity leave, which now was just over 9 years ago. And at the time I was nervous, to be very honest. When I was pregnant, it was fairly late in my pregnancy, around 7 months or so, that I was given this opportunity to have new responsibilities at work, and I was promoted, which under any other circumstances would have been wildly exciting. That was the kind of growth that I was always pushing for in my career. And, but at that stage of the pregnancy, I knew that I wouldn't have a lot of time to reorganize my group and meet my new team members. But I was told, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. We have your back. It'll be fine. And of course, in the 12 weeks that I was away, it was like the whole world had changed at the organization. The focus from, top line revenue kind of went to bottom line profitability. We had gone public not that long before. And so it really felt like I came back to a new job. And I was being asked to bring, my most strategic, clear thinking self to the role. But I was, sleeping in 90-minute increments. I had a newborn and a toddler, and I was just drained. I also had several members, like some of the most seasoned members from each of my teams, need to go out on leave. And it was unplanned leave. It was kind of random and unfortunate circumstances. So I was short-staffed. And like a lot of us, I thought, okay, I'm facing all these challenges at work. So the answer must be to just work harder, right? So I'd be typing away, trying to shield the glow of the computer from the co-sleeper, 1 a.m, 2 a.m, 3 a.m. And there was a lot of days that I didn't remember driving to the office, which was almost an hour away. And there were days that I would get there, race through the parking garage, kind of run up the stairs to get to my floor and realize that I had left the breast pump at home. And I would have to drive all the way back.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. And there were so many signs in hindsight that I was not doing well, including people asking me if I was okay, because people who didn't even know me well could see that I wasn't okay. And I think, like a lot of women, I felt like I was pouring all this energy and love and attention into my family, and my family was doing great. Everybody was flourishing except for me at that point. I was putting a lot of energy and attention into the career that I had spent, decades nurturing and developing, but I was hollow. There was nothing else left. So this job that I once really loved became unsustainable. And in the 2 years after, and it took me that long to recover from burning out, it was a casual conversation with a founder who had asked me to do some advisory work for his company about stress and moms and why are we so stressed? And I said, well, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs and then there's mom's hierarchy of needs. And it was just a light bulb moment. I felt it. I was really excited about just the idea of it. I drew it on a little piece of paper and thought, what would it look like? Would other moms feel the same way about this? And because I'm a researcher and that's how I started my career and it's how I solve problems, I put it out there to a few people, and it was maybe 150 moms later that it kind of looks like what it does now. And at the base, kind of like Maslow's, it's intended to be the things that are our foundational priorities. So for Maslow, of course, it's like, food and shelter and sleep and water. He probably doesn't have sleep in his. There is sleep in mine, however. And at the base, for us, it's the things that we really prioritize, like our children's well-being and their milestones and their health and their activities and their education. And then the next layer are all the things that we would do for our household responsibilities and the considerable list that is. The next layer on top of that are all the things that we do in our professional roles, or for somebody who may not be in the world of paid work, it might be community or volunteer responsibilities. And then way up at the tippy top, that's where all of the self-care is, all of the things that we would do for our mental, physical, and emotional health, which in my paradigm does include sleep. It is not spa days. It includes nutrition, movement, stress management, healthy adult relationships, and learning and fun and interest. And I hadn't realized until that experience that the reason I wasn't making time for the things at the top is because all the things in the bottom 2/3, they're never done.
Yes.
Right? They're never done. Like children's milestones, never
No,
done.
it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. And before you have kids, and in my case, this was my second kid at that point, but before you have kids, you condition yourself to believe that when everything else is done, then I will, right? It's go for that workout, call that friend, see that movie, pursue that PhD, whatever the thing is for you, you put it off with this expectation that there's done at the end of the rainbow, and there is no done at the end of the rainbow. It just doesn't exist. Once you have children, your discretionary time evaporates. And it was my kind of awareness of this, sudden awareness of this, that made me realize I had to be really ruthless about time at the top because it wasn't going to magically appear. No one was going to make it for me. And even your wonderful, loving friends and family will not make it for you. And that changed my life. It improved my health. It improved my growth, and it improved my career. But I couldn't see that at the time. All I knew was that I was dying inside, that I felt terrible, and that I needed to do something differently to emerge from it.
And I think you're explaining the experience of so many parents who are trying to understand and balance family life, personal life, professional life, and personal needs. And I think for many, they don't realize again, or at least they haven't made the connection that all of those things that you were talking about that are on the foundational level, particularly as it relates to taking care of our children, never get done. So if you say, when this gets done, then I will meditate, then I will go for that walk, then I will start eating a more nutritious meal, it will never get done.
Exactly. It's a kind of race against what I sometimes describe it like moms are like swimmers trying to shave a few seconds off of our time each day. It's like we're trimming and trimming and trimming and trying to make everything go faster and faster and faster. But it's unwinnable. It's an unwinnable race. There is only your commitment that matters. And that includes not just your commitment to your family and to your kids and their health, but it does have to include a commitment to your own health, because we are at greater risk for everything. And I mean, everything stress-related illness-wise, anxiety, depression, autoimmune diseases. If women get heart disease, it is more likely to be fatal, right? There's so many real consequences to ignoring our own health and ignoring our own emotional needs, that it cascades into a massive health crisis for women, which for many doesn't catch up to us until later in life. But Health for Moms is my ministry, so I'm very eager for every mom to be aware that there is this paradigm that you can make space for your own health and wellness. And you can do it. It's not going to be the same as it was before, right? Like there was a time where I would run sometimes on a weekend. I would run like for 5 or 6 miles, and it was very luxurious and it was very slow, and I would just pace. I don't do that anymore, right? I run every day, and it's usually for 3.5 miles, sometimes 4. But there are days where if something's going on with the kids, or if I have an early meeting, or if things are just really busy, I might be running for like 15 minutes and it might be like 2 miles, right? It's fitting in. For me, the movement is really important for my mental health, and doing it every day feels values aligned for me. But I have to let go of the perfection and the expectation that it's always going to look the way that I would really want it to. We were just having a conversation, my husband and I, about cookies and holiday cookies and all of the things associated with that. And, there was a time when we were, before we had kids, and for quite a number of years, I was like, the cookie fairy. Like I made 10 different varieties of cookies. I made probably 500 cookies. I sent them to everyone I knew. They were very elaborate. They were beautifully decorated. It was a whole thing. But now there was actually maybe 1 or 2 years where I didn't make cookies at all after my daughter was born. I've kind of winnowed it down to like 2 varieties, sometimes 3. And I'm giving them or gifting them really just to like our immediate families, because I don't have, even if I make the volume of cookies that are necessary, the bandwidth that it requires to package them up and label, 15 or 20 different boxes and get them all to the post office and all of those things, it's a lot. So, as you figure out for you what's meaningful, right? May not be cookies, may not be running. But whatever that top of the hierarchy looks like in your life, whatever thing is meaningful to you, like reading. I love to read. I've always loved to read. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. I still read physical books sometimes, but it's extremely slow. But I can listen to an audiobook while I'm cooking dinner. And when I had a driving commute, I would listen to audiobooks when I was driving. Like I could do things like that. So I think there's a certain amount of just being open and willing to adapt and take the kernel of the thing that was really meaningful to you and keep that kernel, but not hold on to doing it in the way that you used to do it when you had lots of control over your discretionary time.
Right. It's really about being flexible and changing the way you think about the things that you would like to do and the things that you want to do. And what I hear you saying is that as a parent, it's important to realize that your health and well-being is of equal importance to your children's health and well-being. And oftentimes we don't see that, and we don't act in a way that reflects that equality, because I think it's just human nature to want to take care of your kids first and make sure that their needs are met. And if there's any time left over, then you grab onto that.
Absolutely. And, in the research studies that kind of started back with that very first one, and now I have a larger study that has over 3,500 parents in it, 97% of whom are women. So it's very mom-centric. And I began it on March 30th of 2020, and it's still going. It's in wave 9. So it's been just extraordinary to look at how work, life, health, wellness, structural needs have really evolved and changed for people through the past few years. But one mom said it really well in the study. She just said, listen, she goes, if I deprive myself of self-care, the consequences are felt by me, and they're long-term. If I don't do the things that my kids need or that my family needs, the consequences are immediate and painful, right? Like if you don't get those snacks and those lunches and those dinners or those dishes clear, like things, everything kind of goes haywire and it happens quickly. But when you are ignoring your health, it's like a very gradual erosion. And it's, for many of us, it feels easier to put something off where you don't feel those immediate effects. But, the consequences are so severe and so significant to our health. I just encourage everyone, find something. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be what you used to do. It doesn't even have to be your favorite thing in the world. But if it's splashing some cold water on your face with the door closed, or if it's just taking a few deep breaths, or it's taking a walk up and down your stairs or around your block or around your building, just find a thing that is yours that you can repeat on a daily basis and build from there and start to reclaim some things in that top of the hierarchy space so that you have the resilience, so that all the cortisol that builds up in our bodies and causes all the bad things to happen over time, that you have something to, diminish that, to release that, to reset that. And that's what I think is critical. Perfection is not critical. Just commitment and willingness to iterate, as you described, be flexible and find a daily set of practices that work for you is really what I think is the most important. And I can talk about all types of other things that help, right? But that piece, that kind of action piece, is a great first step.
Yeah. And it's very intentional. And I think that's what is so important about when we think about doing things for ourselves as parents, that we have to be intentional about it. And that means prioritizing that, which is very, very hard. And for many of the parents in our community, there's an added stressor when you're trying to understand kids who learn and think differently, to manage their struggles, to make sure they're finding appropriate support. And when I talk to a lot of moms, there's a lot of mom guilt. And I would love for you to talk about some strategies to help moms let go of that guilt, because I hear, again, a great deal from mothers who are trying to balance it all. Mothers in our community who believe that because they were so busy, they missed something that their kids needed. that they missed a diagnosis, they were late in getting their kids support, or like a lot of moms who tell themselves, I should be doing more than I am for my kids and my family.
Oh, yeah. So the mom guilt.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. The mom guilt is real. And, even let's kind of separate a couple of the issues. I think there's the very like heavy weight of being the shepherd or the Sherpa or the, curator of your children's health and wellness and experiences. And in the past few years, I just want to remind everyone who's listening that interacting with the healthcare system got really hard. So if your child is neurotypical or has a different learning style and needs different things, and suddenly you are which I've had to do, by the way, if suddenly you are interacting with the school and you have to navigate and troubleshoot and problem solve with the school and navigate and problem solve and troubleshoot with a set of specialists, and then stitch that information together that you're hearing and receiving from these different experts on behalf of your child, and then implement a set of strategies at home and a set of strategies that the school can adhere to. All of that is huge. And I'm in this process myself and have gone through this process, and it's not trivial. So I just want everyone who is going through that to really reflect, celebrate that you are going through it, that you are able to go through it, and that you are championing your child's best interests, but also know that it's like having yet another part-time job. It's so significant that you can't just allow the guilt to creep in, like, oh my goodness, I didn't find an extra 20 hours this week to do these things that I was supposed to do, right? It's significant. It's not something you can just fit in around the edges of all the other work that you have, paid work or unpaid work. So I think that's a really important frame, right? Because it's a significant amount of work. And I know that you have an audience that probably spans lots of different locations. But here in the US, it's work that's under-supported structurally as well, right? We don't have an education system or a medical system that are designed for children that don't follow the expected bell curves. And even though there's much greater awareness than there's ever been, there still isn't the actual logistical support to make your journey as a parent to implement these things in your children's life and in your family's life, because of course there's an incredible ripple effect right through the family. There just aren't good supports for it. So you're really charting a course in choppy waters, right, with a blindfold on. And it feels that way because you are. So I'm just going to say that.
Let's validate that experience.
Let's validate that. And, what you're doing, I think, in any role that you play as a mother, as a partner, as an advocate, as a friend, as a child of aging parents, because that's a whole other category where not only can the guilt creep in, but the invisible work associated with supporting and caregiving can be so significant that it doesn't fit neatly into your life, no matter how hard you try. So I would just say, figure out what is the most critical or time-sensitive part of the puzzle that needs to be addressed. If it's homework or school, if it's making sure that your child feels supported, that your child is calm, if it's medical care for your child, right? Whatever those pieces are that feel the most time sensitive, like put that one priority on the list. Give yourself lots of time, extra time. Like it might be that, hey, within the next 3 months or 4 months, I really want to find this type of specialist for my child. And I want to find them. That doesn't mean they've seen them. It doesn't mean you have an appointment. I want to find them. Or I want to find the people who know how to find them. Like, give yourself a goal that is manageable and achievable and something that you can work on, and feel really good about the fact that you are doing that. And in the meantime, just let your kids know every day that you love them and that you care for them. And you tell them that they will feel that it's not possible to take every part of that puzzle and tackle it in the speed that you want to, or with the level of veracity that you want to, because a lot of it is iterative, right? Like, you find out one little piece of information from a diagnosis or from a doctor or from the school, and then that leads you to the next 5 steps that you need to make. And until you've done those 5 steps, you don't know that there's this other thing that you can do. So it's iterative. Give yourself very manageable tasks with timelines that are reasonable, and focus on the thing that is the main thing. Don't get overwhelmed in guilt, because guilt can be paralyzing. It also can be depressing, and it can be decelerating. So the momentum that you need and the energy that you need and the goodwill that you need to go through this process really gets diminished when you're also feeling guilty.
And I think that is so well said, because again, it's validating the experience of having to navigate all of these different puzzle pieces. And it is so hard for so many parents. And like you said, for many, it is, and it does feel like another job, trying to get things in place, have conversations with teachers, ensuring that the things that you discussed are being implemented, that your child is responding to those interventions, and then being a mom, being the parent and being present for your child at home and making them feel that they are supported in their struggle, and that you are going to be there to help them through whatever process they have to navigate. And so it's kind of this added layer of things that parents of neurodivergent kids have to manage. And at the same time, as we've been talking about, we have to prioritize our own self-care. And like you said, I think at the beginning, it doesn't mean a spa day, right? It can mean a good night's sleep. It can mean getting up half an hour before everyone gets up to have that cup of coffee by yourself. So it can mean different things for different people. But again, it sounds like prioritizing that time, that self-care, those acts of self-care are so critical, because if your mental health is in check, that speaks to your physical well-being, which also speaks to your ability to care for your family.
Absolutely. As I often say, like, if you go down in flames, that's not good for you, but it's also not good for your family. And it's not good for your career either. Like, nobody wins in that circumstance. And, as you described, I think in this process, any process, especially if you're not an expert in any of the subjects that you need to learn on behalf of your child, it makes you feel inept, right? And when we feel inept, we feel guilty. But you can't be an expert in everything, and you don't have to be an expert in everything. And this is one of the many benefits of someone like yourself, right? Like, you have this expertise and you give people guidance and support. People need to realize that in all places in the journey, we need the guidance and support and the right infrastructure. So if you give yourself a commitment, it's just find the resources that will help you. Don't feel like your commitment is to solve the problem, because it might not be the kind of problem you can solve.
Right. And you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely not.
We're wrapping up 2023 as we're recording this podcast, getting ready for 2024. And the new year is often a time, like I was saying to you before we actually hit record, when people set goals. They set intentions for the new year, which is why I think that this conversation is so timely. It's right on time. So for parents who are saying, I have I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling that burnout. I've never been aware of this mom's hierarchy of needs, but this is really resonating with me. Any guidance in terms of where to start in order to make sure that you have more balance for this upcoming year?
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, I would pick one thing from the top of the mom's hierarchy of needs, which, just to recap, right? It's self-care, which includes things like movement and sleep and nutrition and stress management, healthy adult relationships, or interest, learning, and fun, things that are joyful to you. So just pick something up there and make it a daily habit, a daily practice. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be long. When I speak with people in like workshops, I often will say, pull out your calendar, put it on the calendar, make it a recurring thing, right? So that it's memorialized on your calendar in some way. And it doesn't mean it won't change or that it can't change. It just means that you're giving yourself this daily commitment. So I think that's really huge. The second thing I would say, the underestimated impact of the mental load, also known as cognitive load, is huge, right? So just having that invisible to-do list running through your mind at all times is damaging. And I've studied—
It's
exhausting. Exactly, exhausting. And I studied it in the past, and I have done so many things in my life to reduce it. You can't eliminate it, but you can reduce it. So look at things that you can take off your plate. I always tell people outsource, spouse source if you're partnered, or eliminate, and or even defer in some cases. If it's something that doesn't have to happen right now, can you put it in the deep freeze for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months and pick it back up? But if it's something that's really part of the regular routine, like drop-offs and pickups, if it's something like making lunch or making dinner or making snacks or making breakfast or going to the grocery store, any of what I consider household operations, which we end up often becoming the COO of, take something household operations off of your list. Find someone else to do it. Find a way to outsource it if you can afford to outsource it, or spouse source it if you were partnered, or eliminate it or share it, right? Like find some alternate thing that is permanently off your list and someone else is doing it, so that you're no longer thinking about it, but they have to be someone who can reliably do it. So I'm not saying delegate or tell your kids, because teaching your kids to do something is really involved. And that is not relaxing, and it doesn't remove it from your mental list. It just means you're training someone. It's important. In 5 or 10 years, you won't have to think about it, but it's not the same as taking it off your list and giving it to another adult. So I say find another adult who can take something off your list. Another piece around kind of cognitive load, but it's like an offshoot, decision fatigue, I think is huge. We drown in all these little mini micro decisions we have to make all the time. And they ebb away at our clarity and our health and our well-being and our mental state. So if you can create a routine out of something, systematize something, the reason all of the productivity experts talk about this is because it really does help you have less to think about. So if you can subscribe to that thing that you buy every month so that you're not remembering to have to buy it every month, do that, right? If you can decide that, Monday through Fridays, you're going to eat oatmeal for breakfast. Very unpopular in my home, but I do it anyway. It's just like, you are eating oatmeal. You know why? Because it's healthy, and I know how to make it, and it's fast, and it's nutritious, and I don't have to think about other things. This is not a diner's, right? So you figure out what your thing is, right? It can be that it's a meal. It can be that's some practice, but find a thing that you systematize so you are not dealing with decision fatigue. Am I going to make this, or am I going to make that? Are we going to do this, or are we going to do that? And I push all of those really overwhelming decisions, which for me are things like, online grocery shopping, or picking out shoes, or all those other things I really hate to do. I push them to way late at night because I want to use my fresh, like thoughtful brain for things like writing and research or engaging with clients. I don't want to use my like best decision-making brain that I have early in the day for things like, should I get the pink shoes or the blue shoes or the size 10 or the, stuff like that is destroying to me. So I push those things off into my late at night when my brain's already kind of like half done, instead of trying to do them early in the day when it's going to clutter me for the rest of the day.
And I think those are such great ways to start for someone who wants to get started. And that decision-making fatigue is absolutely real. I feel like you're in my house, seeing what happens. But even when you talk about, the oatmeal for breakfast every morning, the other decision that moms often make is like, what do you want for lunch when you've got kids?
Right.
That is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
You don't do that.
No, I don't do that.
It's like, what do you want today? And it's like, oh, I don't like that anymore. You don't? That was last week you were eating that. And now I'm tired of it. Yeah,
exactly. I have a rotation. I have a whole thing around dinners, lunches, and breakfast. And they get the same lunch for school every day. Sometimes I'll vary the snack. I vary the snack and I might vary the fruit, but the main thing, the sandwich thing is always the same. And it's the same for both of them. And someday, they're going to like try to form a mutiny and overturn me and override the whole thing. But I'm just like, you know what?
Right.
You can have a healthy, happy, mentally stable mom, or you can have a mom who is completely exhausted, diminished because she's trying to make you all different lunches and different dinners every day. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you said about deferring, eliminating, outsourcing, and spouse sourcing. I think, if parents are thinking of a way to start to help manage, all the things that they have to manage, that's a great place to start. And I cannot thank you enough for being here. And thanks for all that you do to help other moms navigate mom's hierarchy of needs, even if they didn't know there was a name for it. And for all the work that you do to counsel businesses to be more inclusive for parents. I know that you do that work as well. Now, I know our listeners are going to want to reach out to you. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, momshierarchyofneeds.com, the website, has all the things there. And I have a newsletter that goes out on Saturday nights. So for moms who want a little inspiration and guidance, I'm also in all the social places at either moms_hierarchy_of needs on Instagram or Mom's Hierarchy of Needs on Facebook, LinkedIn. So I would love for more people to learn about the Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. And there's so many great resources. I also have a wellness app, Time Check, that allows you to track your Mom's Hierarchy of Needs upper hierarchy time and get custom results on how to make more time.
Incredible. And we will put links to all of those resources in the show notes. Leslie, thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate you and the work you're doing.
Thank you. I'm thrilled that I was here. I appreciate you hosting me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about Leslie and Mom's Hierarchy of Needs, and also check out the Time Check app. If you are looking to offload some of your research related to your child's dyslexia, ADHD, or anxiety, be sure to register for our self-paced mini courses on childnexus.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.